Hello there and welcome back to another Nerd Forge review. This time we have Bambu Labs PLA Basic. And just a little backstory before we get into this. This was actually a second reel that they sent me free of charge because the original spool that came with the printer completely ruined my hot end. On the end of the spool where it connects to the where the filament connects to the spool, there was tape which got dragged through my whole printer and completely ruined the hot end. I had to buy a new hot end, but they only sent me this. I had to buy a new hot end, which I was pretty annoyed about. So this is the second roll of PLA Basic that I have used, but props to them, they sent me another one. It got me used to the internals of the P1S and probably taught me a few things. Never ever leave your printer unattended. But yeah, this is the PLA Basic, and it's the colour grey. That's how it looks in the light. I do like this colour, it's very nice. Very, very nice. And this spool actually comes apart and you can just put a reusable on top of it. But do note that it states here, let me just turn the camera up a little bit. It states that if you've got a heater, you can only put it up to 70 degrees Celsius because otherwise the spool will melt. But yeah, this is on the premium side of the filaments. Not something that I'm going to be doing a lot of, but since it came with a printer, I'm going to do a review of it because some people out there are going to want to buy the premium filaments, especially because they have the RFID chip for the printer to automatically recognize what filament you're using, so it automatically sets up the printer for that filament. So first off, we have the test, as always, the wall test. This just shows off the filament. This was printed on a P1S. This one was printed with generic. I know Bambu Slicer, the Bambu Studios app, has tailored profiles for their filaments and some other filaments, but I thought it wasn't fair if every other filament I'm using is using a generic profile and just for this one I use theirs, because it's obviously been worked on a hell of a lot, especially for their filaments. But this actually turned out quite nice. There's one little mark on it that I can point out, and that's here, and that's on the wall one. Them layer lines are pretty bad. But yeah, obviously it's quite thin. Obviously it's only one wall, and towards the top, obviously, with the head moving and the fans going, it's quite hard. But other than that, as you can see, absolutely zero layer lines elsewhere. Absolutely zero. A little imperfection there, but that's nothing major, it's gone. Yeah, that turned out really, really well, and I'm quite pleased with that. But is it worth the price tag though? That's what you've got to ask yourself. So this is quite a big print on the larger scale of things. It is a marble run. This is quite a complicated print. It printed in a few parts, nothing major. There's no marbles in it at the moment, but you normally put the marbles in and then just spin this and it moves the marbles from the bottom up to the top and they fall back down again. This turned out quite well, it really did, and this is from this spool, not the previous spool, because the previous spool completely ruined the huge print that I was doing. Yeah, there's quite a lot of overhangs and they turned out okay. There's a couple of overhang stringing at the top, but nothing major. Again, the higher it goes, obviously you can see there it was perfect. little bit worse, even more worse, and then it got even worse at the top. But it looks fantastic. I can't pick any flaws out of this print at all, apart from the ones I've just pointed out at you. But that is a long way for the filament to go without anything touching the underneath. So I'm gonna let that one slide because every filament would do that. Again, price tag, I think they're about £24 for a refillable spool. If you want the spool, I think it's like £3 or £4 more. But yeah, that turned out absolutely fantastic. Fantastic. On the other hand, this week's Knobby Gnome. Yeah, I don't know. This could be the profile. But again, all the filament was dried for a minimum of 4 hours. It again could be the profile, because other than these little bits, again, a beard's quite hard because it's got different lengths throughout the whole thing. The mouth even looks a bit, but do you know what? Other than that, I'm going to let that one slide because that is not an easy print by far, especially with the ripped jeans at the bottom. I think it's like supposed to be like a pumped up gnome, but to us it's not being the gnome. So, is it worth the premium price tag? And I'm going to say it depends what you're looking to get from a print, because if you're looking to do something like the marble run, like this, you couldn't ask for anything better. You really couldn't. It looks amazing. But if you're looking for more intricate details, like this gnome, maybe I could have used a 0.2mm nozzle, but I didn't. Every print that I do, every filament review that I do is using a 0.4mm nozzle and is sliced in the Bambu studio using the generic PLA profile, unless I'm using PETG, TPU, anything else. It will always be the generic profile. I'm going to say it is worth paying that little bit extra if you are going to be potentially selling these products. But in terms of rating, I'm going to give it a solid 8.2 because, yeah, the prints turn out nice. Yeah, 8.2. But thank you for watching. This has been another review by NerdForge 3D printing. If you could like and subscribe, I'd really appreciate it, and I'll see you in the next one.